Hello guys and gals, and this is another series. This one is 1 Minute Bedtime Stories by Shari Lewis with Lan O'Kun, illustrated by Art Cummings. And this is basically coming right off of the 1 Minute Favorite Fairy Tales, so we are going to read this. Again, this was a discard from the library, which is currently being automated. And it costs money to actually keep books that nobody actually checks out anymore. So, we will be looking at the copyright information, and this is also a 1991 book. Anyways, we will be reading the intro here, to the parents, which I call the intro. It says, "Picture this, dinner is over and it's time to put your youngster to bed. The little one wants a story, and you want to tell your child a story. However, you are also aching to sit down with your husband or wife and establish contact once again, or collapse for a personal moment after the demands of a hectic day. But telling your child a story is the right thing to do. So you open the book, you find yourself confronted with a 12-page adventure of the gingerbread boy. Your youngster, having heard this story before, won't let you miss a single detail, and by the 8th page about the runaway cookie, you're willing to do him in yourself. Many of our basic children's stories are well worth passing on as part of our cultural heritage. The only catch is this. These tales are written in another time, when life was lived at a slower pace and with fewer distractions and fewer available forms of entertainment. In this long form, the classic stories often don't fit our present needs. That's why I started writing 1-minute stories, and you can read them through in a minute. If you had a rough day, or if you're expecting 10 people for dinner, on the other hand, you can stretch each tale into a 5 or 10 minute shared experience with your youngster by looking at the art and asking your child what-if questions. What would have happened if that boy had not cried wolf so many times before? What would you have done under this circumstance? Let's pretend that you are Rumpelstiltskin and I am the miller's daughter. In other words, this is a book that can help you satisfy your child's needs within the context of your own busy and demanding schedule. I find that children delight in mesmerizing stories. These 1-minute versions are easy for even the youngest child to commit to memory. You might even encourage your youngster to retell the tale to other children in the playground or at school. I was always fascinated by the fact that Peter Pan visited civilization to hear the stories. The classic tales are important, and even Peter Pan recognized the fact that through stories he could learn both the magical and the mundane ways in which the world works." Signed, Shari Lewis. Now, our very first story is going to be Rumpelstiltskin. And as always, these are just basically a 2-page story. And there's pictures. Okay, there's that, and there's him. Okay. A miller who liked to brag met the king. He said, "Your Majesty, I have a daughter who can spin straw into gold." So the king, who liked to have gold, locked the miller's daughter in a room filled with straw and a spinning wheel, and said, "If you can spin this straw into gold by morning, you'll be my queen. If not, you'll die." The girl, who liked to live, began to cry, but suddenly a little man appeared and said, "If I spin your straw into gold, will you give me your firstborn child?" To stay alive, the girl had to give her promise to this little man. He spun the straw into gold and disappeared. The king, thrilled, made the miller's daughter his wife, and a year later they had a son. When the little man came to take the child, the queen was heartbroken, and so he said, "If you can find out what my name is, you may keep your son." The queen sent out a message to all who roamed the countryside and returned to the castle and said, "In the forest I just saw a funny little man leaping around the campfire chanting, 'The queen is in a mess. Now isn't that a shame? That she will never guess Rumpelstiltskin is my name.'" So when the little man appeared, the queen said, "Is your name Rumpelstiltskin?" That made Rumpelstiltskin So, when the little man appeared, the queen said, "Is your name Rumpelstiltskin?" That made Rumpelstiltskin so mad he stamped his foot right through the floor and disappeared forever. Okay. Now, that's not the way to do it. That's what the story is. So it has something to do with mules or something. I don't know. It looks cute. I've never heard of the story. Okay. It says, once there was a farmer who decided to sell his donkey. He placed his young son on the animal's back, and they set off for town. Oh, I remember the story already. Before long, they passed a pair of old men who saw the boy riding and clucked. Why is that healthy boy riding while the poor father walks? That is not the way to do it. Embarrassed, the man made his son walk, and he rode the donkey instead. Next he passed some women who stopped working in the field to stare. They shook their heads and said, a grown man riding while he makes his child walk? Why, he's not fit to have a son. That's not the way to do it. So the father lifted the boy onto the donkey's back with him, and they rode together. The group of children, feeling sorry for the small donkey, stopped them and said, 2 people riding on one small animal is too heavy a load. That's not the way to do it. So the farmer and his son both got off the donkey's back, and the creature's legs, tied the creature's legs together and slung the beast onto a long pole. Then they staggered on, determined to carry the animal into town. But while crossing the bridge, the donkey squirmed, knocking them off balance, and they all fell kerplunk into the river. As they were all splashing around the water, the farmer said to his son, my only mistake was trying to please everyone. That's not the way to do that. So you might as well just please yourself. That's true. Next is The Boy Who Cried Wolf. And let's see, right here we have a picture of them with sheep. Guys crying wolf. So everybody comes out, and then nobody believes them. Okay. Once upon a time, a pack of hungry wolves roamed the hills. This was a problem for the lone shepherds who guarded their sheep, but were unable to save them when the wolves attacked. So one day, the shepherds held a meeting. They decided that if one of them should spy a wolf coming out of the shadows, he would call, wolf, wolf, and the others would come running with clubs and noisemakers to frighten the animals away. However, one shepherd boy thought it would be a funny idea, a funny joke, if he were to call wolf, wolf during the night when everyone was asleep. And so he did. Of course, everyone came running in their pajamas and bathrobes and nightcaps, and with sleep in their eyes, all ready for trouble. But there was no trouble, and when the other shepherds realized that they had been awakened for a joke, they grumbled a lot and shook their fist angrily at the prankster. Unfortunately, the next night, a pack of wolves really did attack the young shepherd's flock. In a panic, he stood on a high rock and cried, wolf, wolf, but the other shepherds, not wanting to be made fools of again, merely turned over and went back to sleep. No one came to help the shepherd boy, who lost all of his sheep that night because he had cried wolf, just for the fun of it. Next, we have Rip Van Winkle. A long time ago, in the mountain town of Sleepy Hollow, old men would get together and tell tales about the magic to be found in the mountains that surrounded them. Among these old fellows was Rip Van Winkle. His story began on a morning many years ago when he set off with his dog for a day of hunting. In a clearing in the woods, he came upon a group of tiny men with long white beards playing ninepins, which is something like bowling. They invited Rip to play with them, and he did. Between his turns at rolling the ball, he joined the tiny men as they drank wine from a wooden cask. After several drinks, he fell asleep. When he awoke, he had discovered that his clothes had turned to rags, his gun was rusted, his dog was gone, and he himself had grown a beard that was so long it fell all the way to the ground. Puzzled, he returned home only to find that his little boy had become a big man, and everyone he had ever known was either dead or grown really old. Rip realized that he had been asleep for 20 years. Of course, he searched for those tiny men, but never saw them again. But when the sound of thunder echoed through the valley, he would say it was the crash of their balls striking the ninepins as they played hidden away somewhere high in the mountains. And we are going to read one more. This is The Lion and the Mouse. There's the lion. There's the mouse. The lion gets caught. Okay. One day a mouse was walking near a lion's lair. That's what they call a lion's cave. He makes his home in there. The lion sprang upon the mouse and grabbed it in his paws. The big cat sniffed the little mouse and opened up his jaws. The mouse said, "Some day, sir, you may need a favor too, and if you're kind to me right now, then I'll be kind to you." The lion laughed. "You're much too small to be of use to me," but on a whim he put him down. "Okay," he smiled, "you're free." The little mouse said, "Thank you, sir," and scampered out of sight. And what do you know that the day came when the mouse proved he was right? For the lion was caught in a hunter's net, and he roared, "Oh me, oh my!" The mouse, out with his wife and kids, happened to be strolling by. Seeing the trouble, he rushed to the lion, stood upon his paw, took the net in his tiny teeth, and he began to gnaw. In minutes he had chewed a hole so big I'm telling you, an entire troop of elephants could have gotten through. From that day on, the lion and the mouse were the closest of friends. They lived happily ever after, so I'm told, and that's the way the story ends. That is a cute story. And I believe that we will end it there. In the next one, we will read some more stories in this book. This has been 1 Minute Bedtime Stories by Shari Lewis with Lan O'Kun and illustrated by Art Cummings. And if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you want to support me in any way, all that information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.